The sun hung bright in the afternoon sky over the old Brooklyn neighborhood. Sounds of life filled the streets, cars honking in the distance, music playing from open windows, and children laughing as they raced down sidewalks. Among them was Andre, a 12-year-old boy with bright eyes and dreams bigger than the tall buildings that surrounded him. Andre loved basketball more than anything. He practiced every day after school at the community center, determined to make the school team next year. Today had been a good practice. He had finally mastered the layup his coach had been teaching him, and the feeling of accomplishment still warmed his chest as he walked home, gym bag swinging at his side. The shortest route home took him through Jefferson Park. Usually busy with families and dog walkers, today the park seemed quieter than normal. Andre didn't mind. He enjoyed the peaceful moments between the chaos of practice and getting home to his 3 younger siblings. He walked along the path, occasionally dribbling an imaginary ball or practicing his shooting form as he moved. He didn't notice the police cruiser that had slowed to a crawl beside the park fence. He didn't see the officer inside watching him, speaking into his radio. Andre was lost in a daydream about hitting the winning shot in a championship game when a sharp voice cut through his thoughts. "Hey, you there? Stop walking." Andre froze mid-step, the voice sending a chill through his body despite the warm day. He turned slowly to find a police officer approaching him quickly. Officer Reynolds was new to the precinct, only 6 months on the job, with something to prove to the older cops. He moved with a stiffness that spoke of tension, one hand resting on his belt. "What's in the bag, kid?" the officer demanded, already reaching for it. Andre clutched his gym bag closer. "Just my basketball stuff, sir. I'm coming from practice at the community center. We've had reports of kids stealing from the convenience store 2 blocks over. The description matches you?" The officer's eyes narrowed. "Empty that bag now." A small knot of confusion and fear formed in Andre's stomach. The convenience store the officer mentioned was in the opposite direction from where he'd been. He hadn't been anywhere near it. "I didn't steal anything," Andre said, his voice smaller than he wanted it to be. The lessons his mom had drilled into him since he was old enough to walk alone played in his head. Be polite. Don't argue. Keep your hands where they can see them. I didn't ask if you stole anything. I told you to empty the bag. Officer Reynolds took another step closer, his shadow falling over Andre. Andre's hands trembled slightly as he unzipped the gym bag. "It's just my basketball shoes, a water bottle, and a change of clothes." He started pulling items out one by one, placing them carefully on the ground. By now, people had begun to notice. A woman walking her dog slowed her pace. An older man sitting on a bench stood up for a better view. 2 teenage girls stopped their conversation, phones already in their hands. "What's going on?" one of the girls whispered to her friend, but loud enough that Andre heard it. "Another black kid getting hassled," her friend replied, already holding up her phone, recording. The growing attention seemed to make Officer Reynolds more determined rather than less. "Turn out your pockets, too." Andre carefully set down his water bottle and reached into his pockets, pulling out a house key on a worn string and $3 in crumpled bills. "This is all I have, sir." "Where'd you get the money?" "My mom gave it to me for a snack after practice." Mrs. Chen, who owned the flower shop next to the park, had stepped outside when she noticed the commotion. She'd known Andre since he was a toddler, had watched him grow up passing her shop every day. "That boy comes by my shop every day," she called out. "He's a good kid." "What's the problem here?" Officer Reynolds barely glanced at her. "Ma'am, please stay back. This is police business." Andre could feel his heart pounding against his ribs. He thought about his mother's warnings, about the conversations they'd had at the dinner table. He thought about the news stories that made his mom cry. He tried to stand tall and keep his voice steady. "I didn't do anything wrong, sir. I was just walking home from basketball practice." "If you didn't do anything wrong, then you have nothing to worry about," the officer replied, but his tone suggested otherwise. By now, at least a dozen people had gathered at various distances, a loose circle of witnesses. Andre could feel their eyes on him. Some looked concerned, others curious, a few were filming with their phones. He felt exposed, embarrassed, and increasingly frightened. "Who's your coach at this basketball practice?" Officer Reynolds demanded, his voice carrying across the now quiet park. "Coach Wilson at the neighborhood youth center," Andre answered. "You can call him. He knows me." "I just might do that." The officer picked up Andre's basketball shoes, examining them as if they might be stolen property. "These look expensive." How does a kid like you afford these? The question stung. Andre felt his cheeks burn with a mixture of shame and anger. They were a birthday present from my grandfather, he said quietly. A middle-aged woman stepped forward from the growing crowd. Is there a reason you're questioning this child? Did someone report something specific? Officer Reynolds turned toward her. Ma'am, I need you to step back. I'm responding to a report of theft in the area. And this child matches the description? She pressed. The report mentioned a young black male with a gym bag. The woman crossed her arms. That could be half the kids coming from the community center this time of day. The circle of onlookers had grown larger. Andre could hear whispers, could see more phones raised. He wished he could disappear, could just grab his things and run home. But he knew that would only make things worse. Mr. Washington, who ran the barber shop where Andre got his hair cut every month, pushed his way forward. I know this kid. His mother works at the hospital. They're good people. Sir, I need everyone to step back, Officer Reynolds said, his hand moving to rest on his belt again. The gesture wasn't lost on the crowd, and the murmuring grew louder. Andre stood very still, his belongings scattered on the ground around him. He thought about his mother, about how worried she'd be when he was late. He thought about his little brother and sisters who looked up to him. The weight of the moment pressed on his chest until it was hard to breathe. Can I call my mom? He asked, his voice cracking slightly. We'll get to that, Officer Reynolds said. He picked up Andre's water bottle, unscrewing the cap to look inside as if it might contain something illegal. The crowd had grown to nearly 20 people now. The atmosphere was shifting from curious to concerned to angry. Someone in the back called out, He's just a kid. Leave him alone. Officer Reynolds glanced around, seemingly noticing for the first time how many people had gathered. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, quickly replaced by determination. Everyone needs to disperse, he announced loudly. This is police business. We're not going anywhere, Mrs. Chen said firmly. Not until we know this boy is okay. Andre felt trapped in a nightmare that was spinning out of control. The officer looked increasingly agitated by the crowd. The crowd grew more protective with each passing minute. And Andre stood in the middle, a 12-year-old boy who had only wanted to walk home after basketball practice. A police sergeant pulled up in another cruiser, likely called by dispatch when people started calling in about the situation. As he approached, Andre could see Officer Reynolds straightening his posture, preparing to justify his actions. And then something unexpected happened. A large black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the curb. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out who made everyone, including Officer Reynolds, stop and stare. Mike Tyson, the legendary boxer who had grown up in these very streets, stood watching the scene unfold. His presence was unmistakable. The powerful build, the distinctive face tattoo, the aura of someone who commanded attention without trying. For a moment, the entire park seemed to hold its breath. Then Tyson began walking toward Andre and the officer, his steps measured and deliberate. The crowd parted to let him through, whispers of recognition rippling through the onlookers. Andre couldn't believe his eyes. Mike Tyson, the Mike Tyson, was walking toward him. Under any other circumstances, it would have been the most exciting moment of his life. Now, with his basketball shoes and clothes still scattered on the ground, with an officer still looking at him with suspicion, he didn't know what to feel. As Tyson approached, his expression was unreadable. Officer Reynolds watched him come, his hand falling away from his belt, uncertainty written all over his face. The sergeant who had just arrived stood frozen, clearly trying to assess this unexpected development. No one knew what would happen next. No one could have predicted that what began as a frightening confrontation for a 12-year-old boy would become a moment that would change not just one life, but an entire community. Mike Tyson moved through the park with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced far more intimidating situations than this one. The crowd parted before him, whispers following in his wake. Some pulled out phones to capture the moment, but most were simply too stunned to do anything but watch. Andre stood frozen, his belongings still scattered on the ground around his feet. He had seen Mike Tyson on TV. But nothing prepared him for the reality of the boxing legend walking toward him with purpose in his steps. Officer Reynolds seemed equally caught off guard. His hand, which had been hovering near his belt, dropped to his side. The sergeant who had just arrived from the second cruiser took a few steps forward, clearly recognizing the boxing champion and trying to assess the rapidly changing situation. "What's going on here?" Tyson asked, his voice surprisingly soft but carrying an unmistakable weight. He didn't direct the question to the officers or to Andre specifically, instead glancing between them with calm curiosity. The park fell silent. Even the distant traffic seemed to quiet down, as if the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Officer Reynolds cleared his throat. "Police business, sir. Just questioning a suspect in a recent theft." Tyson looked at Andre, taking in the basketball shoes on the ground, the gym clothes, the water bottle. Then he looked back at the officer with a slight tilt of his head. "This kid? What did he steal? Some jump shots?" A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. Officer Reynolds didn't smile. "We received reports of a young male with a gym bag stealing from the convenience store on Wilson Street." Tyson nodded slowly, taking this in. Then he turned to Andre. "You steal something, kid?" Andre shook his head, finding it hard to speak with his throat so dry. "No, sir. I was just walking home from basketball practice." Tyson turned back to the officer. "You check with the store? They got cameras these days, right? Wouldn't take much to see who really did it." The sergeant stepped forward, recognizing the need to take control of the situation. "Mr. Tyson, we appreciate your concern, but I know this kid," Tyson interrupted, though his tone remained respectful. It wasn't true. He had never met Andre before, but something in the boxer's eyes dared anyone to challenge him on it. "He plays basketball at the youth center where I visit sometimes. Good kid. Works hard." Andre stared up at Tyson, amazed by the lie told with such convincing certainty. His heart was still racing, but for a different reason now. "You know him personally?" the sergeant asked, sounding skeptical. "Yeah," Tyson said simply. "I was driving by, saw what was happening, and thought I should stop." He turned to Andre. "Your mom expecting you home soon?" Andre nodded, finding his voice. "Yes, sir. She'll be worried." Tyson turned back to the officers. "How about we clear this up? I can vouch for him and I can walk him home myself. His mom's probably wondering where he is." Officer Reynolds frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, we have a procedure to follow here." "I understand procedures," Tyson said, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel beneath it. "I also understand that sometimes we need to step back and see things clearly. This is a kid coming from basketball practice. Got his gear right here." He gestured to the items on the ground. "He's got people in this neighborhood who know him. And now he's got me vouching for him too." The crowd had grown larger, drawn by word of mouth that Mike Tyson himself was in the park. Mrs. Chen from the flower shop stepped forward again. "I've known this boy since he was little," she said. "His mother would be so upset to know he's being treated like this." Mr. Washington from the barber shop nodded in agreement. "The kid comes to my shop with his grandfather. Never caused any trouble." The sergeant assessed the situation. A growing crowd of upset neighbors, a clearly frightened young boy, and now a celebrity with worldwide recognition inserting himself into the situation. Whatever had started this confrontation, it was quickly becoming more trouble than it was worth. "Officer Reynolds," the sergeant said, "have you found anything suspicious?" Reynolds glanced down at Andre's belongings, the basketball shoes, the water bottle, the gym clothes. "Nothing remotely incriminating." "No, sir." "Then I think we're done here." The sergeant nodded to Andre. "You can gather your things, son." Tyson kneeled down and helped Andre pick up his scattered belongings, putting them back into the gym bag. The simple act of kindness, the boxing champion on one knee helping a boy pack his gym clothes, wasn't lost on the onlookers. Phones captured the moment, but Tyson seemed unconcerned with the attention. "You okay?" Tyson asked quietly as they gathered Andre's things. Andre nodded, though his hands were still shaking slightly. "Yes, sir. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Tyson replied with a small smile. "I meant what I said about walking you home." Officer Reynolds watched them with a mixture of frustration and uncertainty, but the sergeant was already walking back to his cruiser, clearly considering the matter resolved. The crowd began to disperse, though many lingered, hoping to catch a word with Tyson or perhaps get a photo. "Which way to your place?" Tyson asked as Andre zipped up his bag. Andre pointed down the tree-lined street. 3 blocks that way." Tyson nodded. "Let's go then." He turned to the officers. "Unless there's anything else?" The sergeant shook his head. "You're free to go." As they began to walk, Tyson placed a gentle hand on Andre's shoulder, a gesture that was both protective and reassuring. The touch seemed to ground Andre, whose breathing was finally returning to normal. "That was scary, huh?" Tyson asked as they left the park behind. Andre nodded, clutching his gym bag tightly. "Yes, sir. Really scary. You handled yourself well. Stayed calm. That's not easy to do." They walked in silence for a few moments, the events in the park still hanging heavy in the air between them. Then Tyson spoke again. "You really play basketball at the youth center?" "Yes, sir. Every day after school. You any good?" The question brought a small smile to Andre's face. "I'm okay. Working on my layups. That's good. Basketball teaches you discipline. Teaches you to work with others." Tyson nodded approvingly. "Keep at it." As they walked through the neighborhood, people stared in disbelief at the unlikely pair, the boxing legend and the young boy, walking side by side as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Some called out greetings to Tyson, who responded with friendly nods. A few kids ran alongside them for half a block, too shy to speak but clearly thrilled to be near the champion. "Does this kind of thing happen to you a lot?" Tyson asked after a while. Andre hesitated, unsure how much to share. "Not exactly like this. But my mom always tells me to be careful around police, to keep my hands where they can see them, to be polite." Tyson nodded, a shadow crossing his face. "Your mom sounds smart. She works at the hospital," Andre said with pride. "She's a nurse. That's a tough job. Helping people when they're at their worst. Takes a special kind of person." They turned onto Andre's street, a row of modest apartment buildings with small stoops where neighbors sat enjoying the afternoon. Conversations paused as people noticed who was walking down their street. Andre felt a strange mixture of embarrassment and pride as he led Tyson toward his building. "That one," he said, pointing to a well-maintained building with window boxes full of bright flowers. "We're on the 3rd floor." As they approached the building, the front door opened and a woman rushed out. Andre's mother had been watching from the window, concerned when her son was late coming home. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she took in the scene. Her son walking up the street with Mike Tyson at his side. "Andre," she called, hurrying down the steps. "What's going on? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom," Andre said, though his voice wavered slightly. This is Mike Tyson." She looked at Tyson with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. "I can see that. What I don't understand is why my son is coming home with you." Tyson extended his hand. "There was a situation in the park. A misunderstanding with the police. I happened to be driving by and thought I could help clear things up." Andre's mother shook Tyson's hand, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "The police?" "Andre, what happened?" Before Andre could answer, Tyson spoke again. "Your son handled himself really well. Stayed calm, spoke respectfully. You've raised a good kid." Her face softened slightly at the compliment, but the worry remained. "Thank you for helping him. Would you like to come up? I just made some lemonade." Tyson glanced at his watch, then looked at Andre. Something in the boy's expression, hope mixed with lingering fear, seemed to make up his mind for him. "I've got a little time," he said with a nod, "and I could use some lemonade." As they climbed the steps to the apartment building, Andre felt something shift inside him. The fear from the confrontation in the park was still there, but it was joined by something else now, a sense that something important had just happened, something that would change things in ways he couldn't yet understand. Mike Tyson, a man known for his power and ferocity in the ring, had shown a different kind of strength today. The kind that stood up for a frightened boy in a park. The kind that walked him safely home. The kind that accepted a simple invitation to lemonade because he understood that sometimes what people needed most was just to feel safe. The apartment was modest but spotlessly clean, filled with family photos and the comfortable clutter of a home with children. 3 younger kids froze in place when Mike Tyson walked through the door behind their mother and brother. The oldest, a girl about 9, dropped the book she was holding. The 2 younger boys, who had been wrestling on the couch, sat up straight, eyes wide with disbelief. "Kids, we have a guest," Andre's mother said, her voice carrying a hint of amazement herself. "This is Mr. Tyson. He helped your brother today." For a moment, none of the children moved. Then the smallest boy, no more than 5 years old, broke the silence. "Are you really the punch man from TV?" Tyson's face softened into a genuine smile. "That's what some people call me." The ice broke and the apartment burst into excited chatter. Andre's siblings bombarded Tyson with questions while their mother tried to restore some order. That's enough. Give Mr. Tyson some space, she turned to her oldest son. Andre, take your bag to your room. Then help me get some glasses for the lemonade. Andre nodded, still somewhat dazed by the events of the afternoon. As he headed toward the bedroom he shared with his brothers, he heard his mother invite Tyson to sit at their small kitchen table. In the bedroom, Andre set down his gym bag and took a deep breath. His hands were still shaking slightly. The confrontation in the park kept replaying in his mind. The officer's voice, the crowd gathering, the fear that had gripped him. And then Tyson appearing, almost like magic, changing everything. When he returned to the kitchen, his mother was pouring lemonade while Tyson chatted easily with his siblings. The boxing champion seemed perfectly at ease in their humble home, answering questions about his career with patience and humor. Andre, his mother said when she saw him, would you mind taking your brothers and sister to Mrs. Garcia's for a little while? I need to talk with Mr. Tyson. Andre recognized the tone in his mother's voice. It wasn't a request. It was a direction. She wanted to hear exactly what had happened in the park without the younger kids listening. Yes, Mom, he said. He turned to his siblings. Come on, guys. Let's go see if Mrs. Garcia has those cookies she was baking. The younger children protested, reluctant to leave while a celebrity sat at their kitchen table, but a stern look from their mother settled the matter. Andre led them out, giving one last glance over his shoulder at Tyson, who nodded reassuringly. Once the door closed behind the children, the apartment fell quiet. Andre's mother sat down across from Tyson, her face serious now that her younger children were gone. Please tell me what happened today, she said, her hands wrapped tightly around her glass of lemonade. Tyson took a sip before answering. I was driving through the neighborhood. I come back sometimes, to remember where I came from. He set down his glass. I saw a crowd in the park, and when I looked closer, I could see your boy surrounded by police. Something about it just didn't look right, and you just stopped? To help a kid you didn't know? Tyson shrugged. I know what it's like to be that kid, to have people look at you and see something you're not. Andre's mother nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. So what exactly happened? Andre is always so careful. He knows how to act around police. From what I could tell, officers stopped him because he matched a description. Young black male with a gym bag, said something about a theft at a convenience store. Tyson shook his head. Your boy was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or the wrong color at the wrong time, if we're being honest. She closed her eyes briefly, a pained expression crossing her face. I've talked to him so many times about being careful. I hoped it would be enough. You can't prepare for everything, Tyson said gently, and your boy did good. He stayed calm, spoke respectfully. Didn't make any sudden moves. He did everything right. But it still wasn't enough, was it? Her voice caught slightly. If you hadn't come along, Tyson didn't answer immediately. They both knew what might have happened, how quickly such situations could escalate, how a moment's misunderstanding could change lives forever. But I did come along, he said finally. And nothing bad happened. Your boy is home safe, she nodded, blinking back tears. Thank you. I don't even know how to... A knock at the door interrupted her. She frowned, not expecting visitors. When she opened the door, her expression hardened. Officer Reynolds stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable. Behind him was the sergeant from the park. Ma'am, the sergeant said, I apologize for the intrusion. We were hoping to speak with you and your son, and Mr. Tyson if he's still here. She hesitated, clearly torn between shutting the door and letting them in. Tyson appeared behind her. It's okay, he said quietly. Might be good to clear the air. After a moment, she stepped aside. You can come in. My younger children aren't here, and I'd like to keep it that way for now. The officers entered, looking oddly out of place in the cozy apartment. The sergeant removed his hat, a gesture of respect that wasn't lost on Andre's mother. Mrs. Johnson, I'm Sergeant Williams. This is Officer Reynolds. First, I want to apologize for the distress caused to your son today. Apology noted, she said, her tone making it clear that noting an apology wasn't the same as accepting it. We've confirmed with the convenience store that your son wasn't involved in the theft, the sergeant continued. They have security footage that clearly shows another individual. Officer Reynolds looked at the floor, his discomfort evident. The sergeant gave him a pointed look. Officer Reynolds has something he'd like to say as well. Reynolds cleared his throat. Ma'am, I made a mistake today. I was too quick to act on a vague description, and I didn't take the time to properly assess the situation. I apologize to you and to your son. Andre's mother studied him for a long moment. My son isn't here right now. He's next door with his siblings. I think he's the one who deserves to hear this. The sergeant nodded. Of course. We can wait if you'd like to get him. I'll go, Tyson offered. Mrs. Garcia's, right? Which apartment? 4B, just down the hall, she said, surprised by his offer. When Tyson returned with Andre a few minutes later, the boy stopped short at the sight of the officers in his home. His eyes darted to his mother, who gave him a reassuring nod. It's okay, she said. They just want to talk. Andre moved to stand beside his mother, and she put a protective arm around his shoulders. Tyson remained nearby, a solid presence that seemed to give both Andre and his mother confidence. The sergeant spoke first, explaining about the security footage and offering an official apology from the department. Then he nodded to Officer Reynolds. The younger officer looked directly at Andre. I'm sorry for what happened today. I jumped to conclusions, and that wasn't fair to you. You didn't do anything wrong. Andre listened in silence. When Reynolds finished speaking, the room grew quiet, everyone waiting for the boy's response. Thank you for saying that, Andre said finally, his voice small but steady. It was really scary. I know, Reynolds admitted, and that's on me. I didn't handle things the way I should have. What happens now? Andre's mother asked. Officer Reynolds will be undergoing additional training, the sergeant said, and we'd like to invite both of you to speak at a community meeting next month. We've been trying to improve relations between the department and the neighborhood, and I think your story could be valuable. Before Andre's mother could respond, Tyson spoke up. I've been thinking about something like that myself. All eyes turned to him. I've got some connections with the youth center. Been wanting to set up a program that brings kids and cops together. Not just talking, but doing things. Playing basketball. Learning boxing. Getting to know each other as people, not just uniforms and faces on the street. The sergeant considered this. That could be very beneficial. The department has been looking for community outreach opportunities. I'll be in town for the next few weeks, Tyson continued. Could get things started at least. Would you be willing to participate, Officer Reynolds? Andre's mother asked, her tone challenging. Reynolds hesitated, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. I would. Andre had been quiet, listening to the adults. Now he spoke up. I could help too. With the basketball part. I know lots of kids at the center. Tyson smiled at him. That'd be good. We need kids like you to make it work. Something shifted in the apartment then. A sense that what had started as a frightening confrontation might lead to something unexpected. Andre felt it, standing there between his mother and Mike Tyson, looking at the officers who had scared him just hours ago but now seemed different somehow. More human. The sergeant checked his watch. We should get going. Thank you for hearing us out. He handed Andre's mother a card. My direct line, if you have any questions or concerns. As they moved toward the door, Officer Reynolds paused. I really am sorry, he said quietly. And I'd really like to be part of that program Mr. Tyson mentioned. After the officers left, the apartment felt different, as if the air itself had changed. Andre's mother sank onto the couch, the tension of the day catching up with her. Tyson sat in the armchair across from her. You okay? He asked both of them. Andre nodded. His mother gave a tired smile. Getting there. That took courage, Tyson told Andre, standing there listening to them. Accepting that apology. Not everyone could do that. You really think your program could work? Andre asked. Would officers really come? Some would, Tyson said honestly. Not all maybe, but some. And that's how change starts, one person at a time. Outside the window, the Brooklyn afternoon was fading toward evening. Somewhere in the building, music played. Life went on, but for Andre and his mother, and maybe even for the officers who had just left. Something fundamental had shifted. A door had opened to possibilities that hadn't existed that morning. And it had all started because a boxing champion had driven down a street from his past at exactly the right moment, and had chosen to stop when he saw a boy in trouble. 2 weeks after the incident in the park, the basketball court at the neighborhood youth center buzzed with unusual energy. Kids in gym clothes dribbled basketballs and chatted excitedly, while adults set up folding tables along one wall. A hand-painted banner hung across the entrance. Community Bridge Program, first session. Andre stood near the bleachers, watching as more people arrived. He wore his newest basketball shoes and a clean t-shirt his mother had bought specially for today. His stomach fluttered with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Ready for this? His mother appeared beside him, clipboard in hand. She had taken charge of organizing the parent volunteers, throwing herself into the project with surprising enthusiasm. "I think so," Andre said, though he wasn't entirely sure. The memory of that day in the park still made his heart race sometimes. His mother squeezed his shoulder. "You're doing a brave thing. I'm proud of you." Across the gym, the door opened and a group of police officers walked in. They were in casual clothes, jeans and polo shirts. But Andre could still tell they were cops by the way they carried themselves. Officer Reynolds was among them, looking almost as nervous as Andre felt. And then Mike Tyson arrived, immediately drawing all eyes in the room. He moved through the crowd easily, greeting people, shaking hands, making everyone feel at ease. When he reached Andre and his mother, his smile was genuine. "The man of the hour," Tyson said, giving Andre a gentle fist bump. "This doesn't happen without you, you know." Andre shook his head. "It was your idea." "Ideas are easy," Tyson replied. "Standing up and helping make them real, that's the hard part." He looked around the gym. Good turnout. Indeed, the space was filling quickly. About 20 kids from the neighborhood ranging in age from 10 to 17. A dozen police officers, some looking comfortable, others clearly out of their element. Parents and community members lined the walls, curious and cautiously optimistic. Coach Wilson, who ran the youth basketball program, blew his whistle. The gym gradually quieted as everyone turned toward him. "Welcome everyone to the first session of the Community Bridge Program," he announced. "I'm going to hand things over to the man who made this happen, Mike Tyson." Tyson stepped forward, looking out over the gathered faces. "I'm not big on speeches," he began, "but I want to tell you why we're here. A few weeks ago, I happened to drive by the park and saw something that bothered me. A young man being questioned by police, a crowd gathering, tension building." He gestured toward Andre. That young man handled himself with dignity, and later, when the officers came to apologize, he showed even more strength by accepting that apology and being willing to move forward. Andre felt his cheeks warm as people turned to look at him. "That could have been the end of it," Tyson continued, "but instead it became a beginning. Because that young man, those officers and this community decided to turn a negative moment into something positive. That's why we're here today. Not to forget what happened, but to learn from it. To get to know each other as people, not just as cops and kids." He turned toward the officers. "These men and women have a tough job. Sometimes they make mistakes. But they're here because they want to do better." Then he turned to the kids. "And you all have tough lives sometimes too. We want you to be safe, to be treated with respect, and to know that you matter." A murmur of approval ran through the crowd. Tyson nodded to Coach Wilson, who stepped forward again. "We're going to start with some basketball. Mixed teams, officers and kids together. After that, we've got a boxing demonstration from Mr. Tyson, and then some food and time to talk. So let's get started." The first hour was awkward, as could be expected. The officers tried too hard. The kids were hesitant, and the adults watching from the sidelines weren't sure what to expect. But slowly, as the games progressed, something began to change. A tall officer with a terrible jump shot made the kids laugh with his self-deprecating jokes. A quiet girl surprised everyone with her fierce defense skills, earning respect from officers and kids alike. Officer Reynolds, paired with Andre on the same team, turned out to be a decent player, making smart passes and setting up Andre for several good shots. By the time they broke for water, the atmosphere had shifted. There was laughter, good-natured trash talk, and a tentative sense of connection beginning to form. Andre sat on the bleachers, catching his breath. Officer Reynolds sat down nearby, offering a bottle of water. "You've got game, kid," the officer said. "Those moves you pulled in the last play? Pretty impressive." "Thanks," Andre said. Then after a moment's hesitation, "You're not bad either." Reynolds smiled slightly. "I played in high school. Not as good as you, though." They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the gym washing over them. Then Reynolds spoke again, his voice lower. "I've been thinking a lot about that day, in the park." He looked at Andre. "I want you to know that I'm taking those extra training classes seriously, learning about bias, about how to approach situations differently." Andre nodded, not sure what to say. It shouldn't have taken something like this for me to get it, Reynolds continued. But I'm grateful for the chance to do better. Before Andre could respond, Coach Wilson blew his whistle again. All right, everyone to the center court. Mr. Tyson is going to show us some boxing basics. For the next hour, Tyson demonstrated simple boxing moves, focusing on discipline, focus, and respect. He invited volunteers, both kids and officers, to try on the gloves and practice the stances. He spoke about how boxing had saved him, given him an outlet and a purpose when he was a kid from these very streets. Boxing isn't just about hitting, he explained, as he helped a young boy adjust his stance. It's about control, about knowing your power and using it responsibly. He glanced meaningfully at the officers as he said this, about respecting yourself and your opponent. Afterward, as everyone gathered around tables of pizza and soda, the initial barriers had noticeably lowered. Officers chatted with kids about sports, school, and neighborhood issues. Parents engaged in conversations with police about their concerns and hopes for the community. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments. Still a sense of caution on both sides, but it was a beginning. Andre found himself at a table with Officer Reynolds, his mother, and several other community members. The conversation had turned to practical matters. We need a regular presence in the neighborhood, Mrs. Chen from the flower shop was saying. Not just patrol cars driving through, but officers walking the streets knowing the people, the businesses. Sergeant Williams, who had also attended, nodded thoughtfully. We've been talking about reviving the beat cop approach. Budget's tight, but I think we could start with certain areas, certain times of day. And we need to get to know these kids before there's trouble, an older officer added, not just when we're responding to a call. That's why this program matters, Tyson said, joining their table. Regular contact, building relationships, learning to see each other as people first. Andre's mother, who had been mostly listening, spoke up. What about bringing some of these activities to the schools? Starting even younger? The conversation flowed, ideas building upon ideas. Andre watched and listened, struck by how different this was from anything he had experienced before. These were the same officers who had frightened him in the park, now sitting at a table with his mother, with his neighbors, planning ways to make their community better. As the event wound down, Tyson pulled Andre aside. What do you think? Was it worth it? Andre looked around the gym. Officer Reynolds was helping clean up, chatting easily with some of the other kids. His mother was exchanging phone numbers with the sergeant. Coach Wilson and several officers were discussing plans for the next session. I think it's a start, Andre said honestly. It's weird seeing them like this. As just people, Tyson nodded. That's the whole point. Behind every uniform is a person, and every kid they see on the street is a person too. We just need to remember that. Will you be here for the next one? Andre asked. I've got to head out of town soon, Tyson admitted. But I'll be back. And more importantly, all these people will be here. They don't need me for this to work. They've got you, Andre frowned. Me, I'm just a kid, Tyson smiled. Sometimes that's exactly what's needed. Someone who can see things clearly, without all the baggage adults carry around. He put a hand on Andre's shoulder. What happened to you in that park wasn't right. But look what you've helped create from it. That takes a special kind of strength. As people began to leave, there were handshakes, even a few hugs. Plans were made for the next session. Phone numbers were exchanged. Small seeds of trust had been planted, though everyone knew they would need careful tending to grow. Outside the youth center, the Brooklyn evening was warm and golden. Andre walked home with his mother, both tired but filled with a cautious hope. Do you really think this will change anything? He asked her. She looked down at him, her eyes serious. I think it already has, baby. I think it already has. 3 years passed like a breath. Seasons changed, children grew taller, and the neighborhood evolved in subtle ways. The Community Bridge program that had started with one awkward afternoon of basketball and boxing had grown into something no one could have predicted. Andre stood at the podium, now 15 years old and several inches taller, looking out at the gathered crowd. The community center's main hall was packed with people, families from the neighborhood, police officers in both uniform and civilian clothes, local business owners, and city officials. At the back of the room, television cameras captured the moment for the evening news. 3 years ago, Andre began, his voice deeper now but still carrying the earnestness of youth. I was walking home from basketball practice when I was stopped by a police officer. I was scared. The officer was suspicious, and things could have gone very badly. He paused, looking across the room to where Officer Reynolds, now Sergeant Reynolds, sat with several of his colleagues. The man gave a small nod of acknowledgement. But something unexpected happened that day. Mike Tyson drove by and saw what was happening. He stopped to help, not with his fists, but with his words, with his presence. And he turned what could have been just another sad story into the beginning of something important. Andre gestured to the large screen behind him, where photos from the past 3 years scrolled by. Basketball games between cops and kids, boxing lessons, community cookouts, classroom visits, training sessions. The community bridge program started small. Just a few officers, a handful of kids, and a boxing legend who believed things could be different. Now it operates in 5 neighborhoods across the city. Over 300 police officers have participated. More than 500 kids have come through our doors. And the results speak for themselves. The screen changed to show a chart. Incidents of confrontations between police and minors in the participating neighborhoods had decreased by 67% over 3 years. Arrests of juveniles were down 43%. Community complaints against police had fallen by 52%. And perhaps most importantly, reporting of actual crimes by community members had increased, showing a new level of trust and cooperation. These aren't just numbers, Andre continued. These are lives, my life. My friends' lives. My community's life. And yes, the lives of police officers too. He looked at Sergeant Reynolds again. We've learned to see each other as people first. Not as threats or enemies, but as neighbors who all want the same thing. A safe community where everyone is treated with respect. In the front row, Andre's mother watched with pride shining in her eyes. Beside her sat his siblings, the youngest now old enough to understand the significance of what his brother had helped create. And next to them, making a rare appearance back in the city he'd once called home, sat Mike Tyson. I'm not here to take credit for any of this, Andre said, seeming to sense the direction of some people's thoughts. I was just a kid in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or maybe looking back it was exactly the right place at the right time. The real heroes are the people in this room, the officers who were willing to look at their own biases and change how they work. The community members who were willing to give those officers a second chance. The kids who showed up week after week building relationships that have changed our neighborhood. He paused again, looking down at his notes. When he looked up, his expression was serious. The Community Bridge program works because it's simple. It's about people spending time together, learning each other's names, hearing each other's stories, playing basketball, learning to box, eating pizza, talking about hard things sometimes, but also just living life side by side. The mayor stepped forward next, officially announcing that the program would be expanding to 5 more neighborhoods in the coming year, with funding secured from both city resources and private grants. Andre listened, feeling a strange mixture of pride and humility. His mother had warned him not to let the attention go to his head. This isn't about you becoming famous, she'd said. It's about making sure what happened to you doesn't happen to other kids. After the speeches, as people mingled and enjoyed refreshments, Andre found himself face to face with Sergeant Reynolds. 3 years had added some gray to the man's hair and a few more lines around his eyes. But there was something else different about him too. A softness that hadn't been there before, a thoughtfulness in his gaze. That was a good speech, Reynolds said. You've got a future in politics if you want it, Andre laughed. No thanks. I still want to play basketball. Maybe teach someday. You're already teaching, Reynolds said seriously. All of us. He hesitated, then added, I've got a new group of officers coming into the precinct next month. I was hoping you might come talk to them. Tell your story. Help them understand before they hit the streets. Me? Andre was surprised. Why not have one of the other officers do it? Because they need to hear it from you. From the kid who could have been just another statistic. But instead help change the way policing works in this neighborhood. Reynolds looked across the room, where several of his fellow officers were chatting easily with community members. 3 years ago, most of us drove through these streets with our windows up, counting the minutes until our shift ended. Now my officers know the names of the store owners, the kids, the grandmas sitting on the stoops. They coach teams, help with homework at the community center, show up for neighborhood events. They're part of this place now, not just visitors passing through. Before Andre could respond, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Mike Tyson standing beside him, still an imposing figure even in his 50s. "There he is," Tyson said warmly. "The man of the hour?" Andre smiled. "I was just telling Sergeant Reynolds that's not me. I'm just a kid who got lucky that day." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Tyson said. "It was courage. From all of you." He included Reynolds in his glance. Courage to face something difficult and decide to make it better rather than worse. Later, as the event wound down, Andre found himself standing outside the community center with Tyson. The evening was cool, the street peaceful under the glow of recently upgraded streetlights and another small improvement that had come from the strengthened relationship between the neighborhood and city officials. "How long are you in town?" Andre asked. "Just a couple days," Tyson replied. "But I try to check in on the program every few months. Make sure it's still on track." "It's bigger than anyone expected," Andre said. "My mom says they're talking about starting something similar in Chicago and Atlanta." Tyson nodded. "Good ideas spread. And this one works because it's real. It's not about policies written by people who've never walked these streets. It's about relationships." A police car drove slowly down the street. The officer behind the wheel raised a hand in greeting as he passed. Andre and Tyson both waved back. "That right there," Tyson said, gesturing to the departing patrol car. "That's the difference. 3 years ago, every kid on this block would have tensed up seeing that car. Now they know who's driving it. Makes all the difference in the world." Andre's mother emerged from the community center, his siblings in tow. "Time to head home," she called. "School tomorrow." Andre turned to Tyson. "Will you come by the house while you're in town? The kids would love to see you." "Count on it," Tyson said. "Your mom still make that lemonade?" "The best in Brooklyn," Andre confirmed with a smile. As they parted ways, Andre looked back at the community center, at the banner still hanging above the door announcing today's celebration. From a frightening confrontation in a park to a program that was changing lives across the city, it seemed almost unbelievable. Yet it had happened, one small step at a time. Walking home with his family, Andre noticed things that might have escaped him before. The newly painted playground equipment, the absence of graffiti on the corner store, the way his younger brothers walked with their heads up, unafraid. His mother seemed to read his thoughts. "It's not perfect," she said softly. "There's still work to do." "I know," Andre replied. "But it's better, and that's something." The lessons of those years had become clear to him. Change didn't always come from grand gestures or sweeping reforms. Sometimes it started with one person stopping their car because something didn't look right. Sometimes it grew from an awkward afternoon of basketball and honest conversation. And sometimes the most powerful force for healing wasn't forgetting the past but facing it together, then building something new from the painful pieces. As they turned onto their street, a group of kids were playing basketball using a hoop attached to a lamppost. Among them was a rookie officer who had moved into the neighborhood recently, off duty now, just a young man playing with the local kids. He waved as they passed. "Hey, Andre, we're still on for the tournament Saturday. Officers versus community center? Wouldn't miss it," Andre called back. It was a small moment, ordinary in its way, but 3 years ago it would have been unimaginable. And in that simple exchange, a police officer and a teenage boy planning a basketball game, neighbors in every sense of the word, lay the quiet revolution that had begun the day Mike Tyson happened to drive down a Brooklyn street and decided to stop.